Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown, our live post-game show after Game 5 of the Heat versus the Pacers. And boy, what a game it was. Kind of a tale of two halves, if you will. In the first half, what we saw was quite a bit of ugly play. Both teams, nobody wanted to take control of the game. A lot of turnovers. And like I said before, I don't understand how this works with Indiana, how they have so many bad ball handlers. Just everybody from Hill all the way down to Hibbert lose the ball, can't get control of it, make just bad turnovers that aren't really forced by the defense. Now you throw into the fact they're playing against a really gambling, aggressive defense in the Heat, and then they're going to have other turnovers that are pretty bad as well. So you had a first half that was pretty uneven, but pretty exciting as well. We had Birdman, and get into a little scrap there with Tyler Hansbrough, and I don't think anyone's surprised that he was involved in that, but the one thing that was surprising to me was that Birdman didn't get thrown out of the game for his first push, because it seemed kind of out of the blue in transition on the way back, and those are the kind of plays you normally see the referees get a little bit, want to take control of the game and just quickly get rid of the guy like that who's causing those kind of problems. But they got everybody settled down a little bit, and Birdman came up with a really big block right after that. So again, let's not make any mistakes here. The Heat are a better team. They have more weapons, they have more athletic ability, they have more talent. And generally in a 7-game series, that's what's going to win out. So there isn't really a surprise necessarily that they're going to be up 3-2, and let's not kid ourselves. The team that wins Game 5 wins the series just about every time. And so what's going on here is that, Spoelstra has been staying the course. Very few adjustments, really. They didn't double team Hibbert almost at all. They had one big one that was toward the end of the third quarter that got him a turnover and they got a score. So but that seemed a little bit more random and kind of Haslam just sort of playing and with a lot of energy than anything else. So they didn't really adjust, knowing that eventually you play enough possessions between the Heat and the Pacers and the Heat are going to come out on top. And that's okay, and that works for the most part. It's going to get them, through 6 games, probably maybe 7 games. The Pacers, on the other hand, do impress me a little bit because they play more like a team. And it's because they don't have the kind of talent that they have to play like a team. And so part of what I saw happening was that they didn't stick to the game plan that worked really well. Now let's not forget, we have high pick and rolls with Hibbert rolling, they forcing the over-aggressive Heat defense to rotate, and then someone small has to pick him up in the lane. And that was still happening quite a bit in the first half, but in the second half, the Indiana Pacers kind of went away from this. Now part of this was the wilting pressure of the defense. They really got up on the guards and they were causing a lot of problems, but also it had to do with the fact that the Pacers kind of just got out of sorts. So we saw a lot of plays in the first half where David West did a lot of damage from the high post, backing his man down low. And that was all good stuff. However, they couldn't quite get it where, in the second half, they couldn't get him in positions to attack. And that part of it, again, is the defense, but part of it is just simply the offense. The calls got conservative. They got they didn't go down to their strengths. Now, the other strength that we saw was a screen and roll on top with David West and with Roy Hibbert on the weak side. And so with that in mind, that gets Roy Hibbert quite a lot of looks from when they swing the ball. Because remember, on those kind of screen and rolls, they're not trying to score on the screen and roll. They're simply trying to swing the ball to get some room for the post up by Roy Hibbert on the weak side. So it was really interesting to see how all that played out. And the bottom line is they had a really big run in the third quarter. And what was most impressive about that, excuse my earpiece adjustment on this in our new digs. The most interesting thing about that in the third quarter when the Heat went on to a big 16-3 run at the end was that they went to horns almost primarily on offense. And also the adjustment was to have LeBron James on the high post and give him the ball. We'd seen a lot of him either running the point guard in the horns or playing in the corner, coming out of the corner, getting a double screen. And that's not as effective as getting LeBron James one dribble away from the basket in the high post with the ball. So that's really an important thing for the Heat to do on offense to get great shots, and it keyed their run. So it was really exciting to see that. That's when they're at their best, when they're actually running sets. Because remember, like we said, they are a more talented team than the Pacers. But why not run good offensive sets that are going to get them in position to score? It just seems like a no-brainer to be able to do that. So When they finally did that, it worked like gangbusters. The Pacers, again, their ball handlers are so bad that they're throwing the ball away even without pressure. And into that fourth quarter, they clearly got tired. Again, they don't have a large bench. And some of the other X factors that came into play. Haslam again went crazy from the outside. I think he went 8 for 9 again for the game, something that they don't count on, and he was unconscious by the end, hitting those baseline jumpers. And so the Pacers are going to have to do something to adjust for that. Now, they have Hibbert on Haslam a lot, and he's not going to come out and guard him, and normally you want him to shoot those shots. Once he gets into hitting 2 or 3 or 4, you're going to have to do something to stop that. So that was an issue. Now, Lance Stevenson and George Hill also gave them absolutely nothing from this game. Now, they finally got some really big contributions from Paul George, who shot well and scored well and showed flashes of LeBron James' inability to guard him, and also Dwayne Wade, when he was guarding him, had a little of a tough time. And so we're seeing the genesis of a star here in Paul George, but he still isn't quite there yet, making some decisions that were pretty poor. He had a look-away pass in the fourth quarter on what would have been a good bounce pass for a layup. Stevenson didn't cut as well as he should have, but still, those are kind of plays that can't really happen in a game like this. He's still a little bit just too loose. And he's young, and he's learning, and he's probably still, I know he's was growing into his NBA career, but there's something not quite solidified by the way he moves. And once he gets completely comfortable with that, he's going to be just a devastating force on both ends. And they got a terrific game from him. Hibbert, again, did a lot of damage, but was kind of hidden there in the second half as the Heat defense increased their pressure, and the Pacers were unable to get into the sets that worked so well. And again, Vogel is doing a nice job. They had a nice wrinkle in the middle of the second quarter that we saw with a screen from Hibbert to Paul George at the free throw line, and he popped out. They hit the ball to Hibbert on the high post and cut Paul George back door. It's a very nice play. I think the ball ended up getting tipped out of bounds and they lost it, but there is some nice little movement there that gets Paul George and Roy Hibbert involved in the same play, which is really important for them. But when you have guys like Lance Stevenson and George Hill pretty much providing you nothing, 2 points for, these are all off the top of my head. If we can cut to the box scores, we'll show you. But basically, here we are. Well, let's go through the box scores as we go. So here, though, we have, which box score is this? Let's see if we can figure this out. This looks like the end of the first quarter, perhaps, which box score is this as we're looking at it? Okay, so at the end of the first quarter, you saw Paul George had just a huge monster quarter. Actually, it can't be the quarter because I'm sorry. It's the end of the first quarter plus a little bit of the second quarter. We were a little bit late grabbing our screenshots. Hey, it's live TV. So we see here 6 for 8, just dominating actually, having a terrific game and scoring 15 points with 4 rebounds. And then Greg Hibbert doing, again, a huge amount of damage down low with that screen and roll and rolling, and then also the screen and roll on the weak side and then hitting Hibbert down low. Again, no double teaming on Hibbert, letting him go crazy down there. And other than that, that was actually it. That's kind of scary. Look at that box score. 2 guys scored. And, that's the kind of unbalanced scoring that isn't going to beat the Heat. And we've seen in the other games that the Pacers won where they had completely and utterly balanced scoring. And that's when the offense is working at its best. So they have to find a happy medium here between the two things. Do we have another, the box score for the Heat after one? Let's see here. Can we call that up? Here we go. We're working out the kinks, sports fans. Okay. So we need a second or two to get to the next box score. Let's see for the Heat. There we go. Oh, okay, we're missing part of it. At any rate, let's see. It'll be a whole new experience to see if we can get it get it full screen. I can't see what's happening here with the whole thing. I don't know why it got cut off. Well, let's move on to the next one then if it's not there. What do we have here? Okay. Well, we can keep vamping here. Let's see. What other things come to mind? Oh, there we go. That's bigger at least, but we still need the rest of the box score if we can get it. For some reason, it's being cut off. I'm not even sure if anyone's watching it. Who's out there right now? So anyhow, well, we can look at the field goals at least. LeBron was 3 for 5 and was efficient, and Chalmers was doing okay as well with 3 for 6. But as you can see, Dwayne Wade 0 for 3 and pretty much ineffective, and he looks Dwayne Wade still looks like he's got obviously issues with his knee. I know they're trying to tape his kneecap in place so it doesn't bother him. And I got to tell you, it's a real problem for them. It's enough to beat. It's enough to take care of the Pacers for sure, but they're going to need more contribution from Dwayne Wade going forward if they want to beat the San Antonio Spurs in the finals. It'll be quite interesting. So, do we have another slide to come up? We can talk about some other freeze frames we got from the game. Aha! Well, there's the rest of the box score. So, here's what we have. So at the end of one and a little bit more in the second quarter, so here we had LeBron James 7 points, Mario Chalmers 7 points. 4 turnovers, a little bit high for them, but again, it really felt like in the first half nobody wanted to win this game. It seemed like going back and forth, giving the ball away, taking some tough shots. What's our next screenshot here? So there you go. So it was a 4-point lead, going in. So the Pacers were doing okay, keeping the ship together with some tape and some glue and some smoke and mirrors here. But again, to only have 2 players score through 15 minutes of the game isn't going to cut it against the Heat. So what do we have next? Okay, so here we have a freeze frame. So this was the play I was talking about. As you can see, Paul George originally started at the free throw line here, the inside of Hibbert, curls around almost like a flare cut. You can see how Dwayne Wade ends up getting caught on the high side. They can easily slip a pass high. By the way, this is almost like horns. This is a bit of a horn set with a double high post. And what Paul George did was cut back door, but Roy Hibbert couldn't quite connect on this play. It was nice. I like the adjustment. It was a nice thing to see. Good action to get a gambling defense and a gambling player like Wade out of position. And that's really interesting stuff. What's our next slide? So here we go, and this is how it started. So you can see that Paul George starts in the middle and then curled around Hibbert. Hibbert flashes up to get the pass. So again, a nice little wrinkle. I hadn't seen that all series yet until now. What's our next one? All right. So here we go, and we have. This is one of the 5 outs. You can see the 5 out is really 4 guys out, and then the designated screener. And this is Birdman at this point, and he's just going to run around screening guys anywhere he can. This is the funny thing. Chalmers ended up dribbling the ball in place, I don't know, five times. Totally stagnant. The offense not working at all. But all of a sudden, they end up spreading him enough where Chalmers gets right to the hoop and gets a layup. So it almost kind of encourages this kind of play. And listen, as a coach, the bottom line for me is if I see 3 guys standing around on offense for the entire possession, it's just not really good offense. It really isn't, especially if there are 3 guys along the perimeter like that. You just should have a little bit more movement or something to make the defense work. It plays into the Pacers' hands. So, what's our next slide? Okay, so we have a game summary here where at halftime. And you can see the Pacers were shooting really well, and the Heat were not shooting very well. And most of this has to do with the stagnant offense they had. Just a lot of 5 out, no adjustment. Very little horns, very little flash of LeBron James to the high post and that kind of movement that we showed you in the other 4 games. So again, they're simply just relying on great athletic ability and talent. And, they've gotten against a team that doesn't match up as well against that. So it will work against them. However, the Pacers are one of the top defenses in the league, and they're going to make it tough on the Heat for long stretches when they get into those modes where they're playing that kind of offense. So it's really frustrating. Let's see here. The Pacers, can we go back to that last one? The Pacers ended up shooting, 50% from three-point land, and the Heat were jacking up some other ones and not shooting as well. Rebounders were a little bit closer, which is interesting. The Heat haven't been this close at halftime of a game, I don't think, for a while here, with only three points. In fact, had more second-chance points, which is a big advantage for the Pacers normally. But again, 9 turnovers, that is probably too many. They're going to have to keep it around 12-13 if they want to win these games. All right, next slide. So here we have the third quarter. The Heat took control and ended up. I'm sorry. This is the at the end of into the end of the second. So and again, the Heat had a big run to start the third quarter to take the lead. So let's move on and see what the next slide we have is. Okay. So here we go. So this is the box score at basically the halftime, a little bit beyond the halftime. And so LeBron James again really efficient. But he had 3 turnovers, and that isn't going to bode very well for him. He shouldn't have. He wants to keep that a lot lower than that. Although for the total, they only had 6 turnovers. So they were doing okay, but this game was still very close because they were letting the Indiana Pacers shoot better. Let's see here. Mario Chalmers, again, doing a little damage, and I'm still impressed that they want to go to him so much. They like to throw a lot of pitches and screens for him on the sideline to let him dictate the offense. And I don't know, when you have Wade, Bosch, and LeBron James out there, I don't know why they give him that many. I suppose they want to, keep the defense honest, but there are, in my mind, way too much pressure on Chalmers. He should be spotting up and getting more from LeBron and Wade than what he's trying to create. Let's move on to the next slide and see how Indiana's doing. So Paul George, again, was a little bit quieter after that big outburst in the beginning, but David West went to work and was getting a lot of good shots and was really effective with 10 points. Now we're getting a little bit more balance, at least with West with 10 points. And then Hibbert, again, kind of cooled down a little bit as well and didn't have as much damage. So that's the other issue there. And with 11 turnovers, suddenly they're really having trouble. They're getting virtually nothing from their bench. That's also another problem. Sam Young had a nice drive and dunk, and as soon as I saw that, I knew that was his only basket of the half or the game up to that point. But, they're not going to get enough production. It needs to be from the starters. And you can see here, Lance Stevenson, no points. George Hill, no points. Hill at least had 3 assists, but he also had 2 turnovers, and that's just not going to cut it against the Heat. They need one of those 2 to give them something. And by the way, if one of those 2 had 10 points, play like they normally would, they would have a nice 8 or 9 point lead. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so here is Horns. And here's the key for this Horns set is that LeBron James is on the high post. A lot of times, and in fact too many times in my mind, they are putting LeBron in the corner. And that's okay because he'll get a double screen out of that and coming around, but sometimes the Pacers can get in enough defensive position to keep him out of the lane. Here, you have Paul George on him. He's basically about 1 dribble away from scoring. And now, if Hibbert helps out too much, his man is close enough where he can slide right in and get an easy shot. So it's a real problem and a real pressure in the defense when you run Horns with LeBron on the high post. And I guarantee you're going to see a lot more of that in the future going forward of LeBron James and Horns. Next slide. Okay, again, and then, by the way, this might even be the same play or the next play down. They did it a couple times in a row, and I grabbed the screenshot just so you understand. It's a really important play here where you can do that. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, look, and here was, I think, the only time I noticed a real solid double team on Hibbert down low. This ended up forcing the ball out of bounds in the midst of the Heat run. So this was important here where the crowd was into it. They were on a huge run, and that was a big double team. And the key for the double team on this one is with Haslam. Haslam runs out and jumps on him. A lot of times if you're going to send Chalmers or Ray Allen or a smaller guard onto Hibbert, it does nothing. It's a wasted double team because Hibbert can look over him and make a pass. But with Haslam at least, who's about, we'll give him 6'8", maybe 6'9", that's a much more formidable double team with Chris Bosh and renders him a lot less effective. Next slide. What do we have? Okay, so at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth, the Heat went on that big run, 30 points in the third quarter. It might be a high for them for a quarter in this series. Really did some damage there, and that was all on those. It all turned on running Horns and getting LeBron James in the high post, and they were just knocking down shots. By the way, the whole key for that is that it gives LeBron a chance to use the offense to let him shine. In good situations where there's guys in position for the rebound, the defense can't overload as much on him. It's really important that they do this, and they don't do it enough. That's why these games are so tight to begin with. Next slide. So here we have Indiana. Again, 14 turnovers into the fourth quarter is way too many. And again, they're relying on simply 3 players. Stevenson and Hill, again, giving them nothing. Hill had 1 point at least, finally. But again, 3 turnovers by Hill, 2 by Stevenson. And Stevenson has been the X factor. Let's not kid ourselves. He's been having some terrific games, and they're also unexpected, kind of like the games that Haslam is having for the Heat. And if Haslam continues to do what he's doing like he did tonight, then you got to have the X factor on the Pacers do the same kind of thing, and that's not happening with Stevenson. He looked kind of off balance a lot all night. He looked like he was out of it. It looked like that maybe the Heat got into his head. They were certainly talking trash out the wazoo to him, and he was trying to probably talk back, and it wasn't his thing tonight on the road against a tough team. Let's look at the next slide. So here we have the Heat. They're not that much better balanced either, but when you have LeBron James explode, look at that, 27 points through 3 and plus a little bit in the fourth on 12 of 19 shooting. This is why they brought him to Miami. This is what he's shown. 6 rebounds, 5 assists is completely impressive. He didn't have any other turnovers there. Dwayne Wade is, again, 1 for 6. and 3 turnovers. He's just not looking like himself. It's a real problem that the Heat are going to have to solve in the finals against the Spurs, because they're not going to get away, I don't think, with having Wade having such substandard games like this without any other contributions. Look at Chris Bosh was 3 for 7. He just seems also out of it as well. He just didn't seem to have the kind of energy and the passion. LeBron brought it. Haslam certainly had it. And on defense, too, he was all over, taking charges, doubling on that one. Terrific stuff. And Chalmers is doing his part, 12 points, 5 assists. Let's move on to the next slide. And here at the end of the game, the big run. But look at this, which is interesting. It ended up being 11. The Indiana Pacers pretty much outscored them by 2, if you notice that. So they're not going to give up. They're going to hang tough. They're going to fight a little bit here. But they're going to, this is sort of a losing battle here. They used so much energy to even maintain the closeness of the game that they're going to be exhausted by the time the game is toward its end, especially on the road when they don't have the home team to give them that kind of energy. Do we have another slide here? Okay, so here's just about how we finished. So you can see here again, 22 by Hibbert. So, but again, I think he only had 1 field goal in the second half, as I can recall from the first half. So, and only 6 rebounds. That's huge. So he was getting pushed around out there, and definitely was not nearly a factor under the boards. And we see here their total rebounds were 33. So we're going to compare that next as soon as we see this. But look, Lance Stevenson 4 points, completely ineffective. George Hill 1 point and 3 turnovers. So, by the way, this might be a little bit old. It might have been, I think Stevenson had a turnover at the very end, the 4th turnover maybe, or maybe that's the 3rd on that charge. So, you can't have your starting backcourt give you that little production. And by the way, if they just got 10 points from Hill and 8 points from Stevenson, okay, that's a different game, right? They are right there, maybe win it. So they're not that far off. And the Heat, this is sort of a struggling, interesting game. This is going to go 7 games in my mind for sure. And the Heat are going to win it because they're going to be at home on it at the game 7. Let's look at the Heat. Pacers 33 rebounds, and look at that, Miami 32. So they only got out-rebounded by 1 rebound. That's very big. So these are all the factors that are playing in. The rebounds were a lot closer. The Heat battled a little bit more. We did see a lot of instances, though, where the Pacers still had the advantage down low, but they ran out of gas. And then you see here only 10 turnovers. So they're not turning the ball over. They got their shooting percentage up to 51%, and they shot pretty well from the 3-point line. So they had their typical game. They had the game that they expect to have without any kind of adjustments, and they wore the Pacers out. And that's what you hear Spoelstra keep saying is keep going faster, keep speeding it up, don't let them slow down, don't let them get their breath. And you do that enough times, and you're going to wear them out eventually. But this is also a key. This is a big Game 5 home win. And so, that's important. Again, impressive. The Heat are definitely the best team in the East by far. And the Indiana Pacers are, with Granger, they're a little bit closer. They're going to have to add another bona fide NBA player. Not a star, but just somebody who's a real, legit NBA player. Not like Sam Young, not like DJ Augustine. Jan Mahimi, I thought, was better than he's been showing. He had a couple nice plays, actually, and we've seen him do better. So there's a possibility there where he can maybe get a little bit more run from there if he can improve over in the offseason. Now, I think we're going to turn to our tweets and see what we have here, and if anyone's going to ask any questions if they're watching this. Okay, so we're going to – all right. We're almost ready to have Twitter up. This is exciting live, and I'm assuming that everyone got a tweet that told them where to watch. Oh, there it is. So we just need to go to the mentions, if we can find that, guys. Hopefully we can. And hey, this is live TV. Welcome to the YouTube studios, and I want to give a big shout out to everybody here. I want to give a big shout out to everybody here at the YouTube studios who've been so nice to let us in here and give us the run of the facility. We've been pushing them through their paces, trying to incorporate what we see here with the screenshots and with our Twitter feed. And there's no doubt that we're all going to be better for it in the future, and we'll have a much better show and much more smoother. But again, everybody here has been doing fantastic. So Ian and Jason, thanks. And we have Arun in the control room, and Lucky doing all the technical directing. So this has been terrific. They need a couple more seconds to figure out where to find our mentions, but I have confidence in them that they're going to do it. So we can talk a little bit about what we got down today. We had a lot of guests in studio today with a lot of tape segments we're going to release throughout the next few days. Absolutely fantastic stuff from guys like Larry Kuhn on the CBA and the landscape of the free agency, where Dwight's going to go and all that kind of stuff, and who has the money to pay him. We had Mark Heisler come in, who's the Hall of Fame writer who used to write for the LA Times. We had Eric Pincus, who's the NBA blog editor on the LATimes.com. We had the Kamenetsky brothers come in here and talk a lot about the NBA, and we had a good segment about Paul Pierce. Who else do we have? We had Clips Nation. We had Steve Perrin come in. So we had a lot of great people coming in. I'm forgetting somebody, but I'll remember them in a second. And again, so luckily for us, we have this great set, and we can create all these different kind of graphics and stuff and make this a much more interactive thing. So, okay. Well, okay, we're having a little problem trying to find my mentions. Yeah, I think if you create a list and you have the search be at B-Ball Source, you might find them all there. Or, somehow I can't tell you my login information online, but live. But you know what I can do here? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually go crazy here and get out my phone out here and look at the tweets here. So we'll do it that way for now. Hey, you gotta be able to think on your feet, right, sports fans? So here we go. Let's go back here and call up some tweets here and see what we got. Okay, here we go. So Robert Asmar asks, do you think the NBA is rigged? It's an interesting question because if the NBA was rigged, you probably wouldn't have any 4-game sweeps, right? They need that revenue money with more and more games. So the fact that the Spurs beat the Grizzlies in 4 straight means to me that it's not rigged per se. That said, when the first one is a sweep, now they're panicking, thinking, well, are the Heat and the Pacers going to be a quick series? And they can't have that. So they send Joey Crawford, to make sure that at least the Pacers can kind of get back in the series. There's no question that the league office has control over who they send as the referees, and there seems to be no question the referees tend to have certain relationships with certain teams. But I refuse to believe that it's that rigged per se. Let's move on. How come the Heat doesn't really run anything for D. Wade or Chris Bosh? Well, Chris Bosh isn't going to get much run for him. He's just going to spot up. And so, when Chris Bosh spots up, he's going to just feed off of LeBron and Dwayne Wade. And that's a real shame because he's not able to post up. And as you've seen in our breakdowns in the past years, not so much this year because he hasn't done it, he was absolutely devastating on the right block. So I can't understand why he wouldn't have they don't run any kind of low post plays for him. It's a real waste of his talents. And I think he's happy winning the games, and maybe they'll win another title, and that'll be okay for him. But man, I don't understand why he isn't more involved in that. And then Dwayne Wade, whatever they run for him is going to be basically sort of ISO. And again, if Dwayne Wade was in an offense like the Spurs, where they're getting him moving and then he can ISO, he'd be even more devastating. But the bottom line is, when you got LeBron, I think that they could use him even better, creating stuff for other players. And right now, it's too stagnant for my taste. All right, let's move on to. I'm taking Twitter questions. Yes. Where do I rank LeBron all time as of now? How about if he wins another Finals MVP and championship this year? Well, listen. Michael Jordan has always been like the greatest player of all time in my mind, and LeBron is different. He's a different player altogether. He's not as ferocious as Michael. Michael had that warrior mentality, and he would rip your heart out if he could to beat you. And LeBron doesn't have that, but he's so supremely physically talented that it almost doesn't matter. So he will be, when all is said and done, one of the top 3 players ever. There's no question. I mean, already at this level, he's not even 30 yet. And he's been beyond Michael ability-wise at the same age since he kind of got into the league. And so at this point, yeah, he's well on his way to, top 1, top 2, top 3 of all time. Let's see here. Are Wade and Bosh going to have to contribute more for the Heat to win? Yeah, like we said earlier, yeah. They will. They're not going to beat the Spurs with Wade getting 6 points and Bosh getting 9 and shooting under 50%. They're just not going to. They need more contributions from them, and it'll be interesting to see how the Spurs are going to attack that, because are they going to try and just do single coverage with LeBron and then shut down everybody else, which is probably what they're going to do, or are they going to try and shadow LeBron and let somebody else be open, like Haslam? It'll be interesting, or Chalmers. So. It'll be a real chess match there, but they're going to need a lot more contributions in the finals. Yeah, where was Hibbert in the second half? There's a lot of pressure on the guards by Miami on Indiana's guards, but it didn't seem like they were still running the same plays. We'll go through and break it down for tomorrow, and we'll see if they actually threw Hibbert into the low post. I felt like they weren't doing it as much, and Paul George was kind of isolating a little bit, and they got out of sorts. Hey, a Game 5 on the road in the conference finals for your first trip. That's a scary proposition. It's not easy to handle. So let's see here. And then I have Thank you. I'm even getting a tweet from Larry Kuhn telling me to stop futzing with my earpiece. That's the best advice I've had all game. I won't say it in my darn big ear. If the Heat advance, can they? Yes. Let's see here. Of course, free throw disparity is the only measure of officiating. Good job. Now go lay down. Thank you. Did Paul George underperform in this game, and what were the changes the Heat made in defense? Well, Paul George certainly overperformed. He played terrific. He shot really well for the most part, hit some really tough shots. They got what they needed from him. There was a stretch there where they went away from him on LeBron, and that was a little strange to me because he really is their best player. LeBron's going to try and abuse Stevenson, and if Hill has to switch off. Which reminds me, the Heat have been getting a lot of great play out of the screen and roll when Ray Allen screens for LeBron. Ray Allen's usually being guarded by George Hill, and it's a switch immediately. And I don't know why they switch. They don't have to. It's not the best screen being set. And yet, as soon as that happens, LeBron can just destroy Hill. And so they need to come up with an answer to that because they're doing it enough times where it's a problem. So, let's see here. I noticed that LeBron James uses the pick and roll with his guards to free himself up for jumpers. That's exactly what I was talking about. One thing I noticed that seemed to be that worked a little bit for them was when LeBron's going to his right, they went underneath the screen, and LeBron didn't even look to pull up. So we all know that LeBron likes to go to his left and pull up for the jump shot, and that makes sense. Your elbow's in when you're going to your left if you're a righty. And so they might have discovered something there where if he's going to his right, they're going to go underneath the screen and contain. Not a bad idea. Certainly something there that worth looking into some more. Did foul trouble take Lance out of this game? Well, certainly he ended up fouling out. That could have been it, but I don't know. It just seemed to me he kind of got a little case of sphincteritis there under the bright lights of a Game 5. And remember, the Game 5 is the biggest pressure situation you can have because, like we said, whoever wins Game 5 in a 7-game series tends to win the series. I think it's into the 90s as far as the percentage of time they win. Oh, okay, and they might even be ready for the big screen for some of these tweets. So we'll see if they do that, and I can put my phone down. All righty, this looks like what we're looking for. Let's cut to the camera and get this on here. So here we go. All righty. How did LeBron take over? Okay, like we showed before, we ended up having, they went to horns, and they put him on the high post and horns. It changed the whole game, seriously. So now you know why I capitalize horns on every one of my tweets. Let's move on to how would I compare Frank Vogel and Eric Spoelstra as coaches and rank them amongst all 30 of his past season's coaches? I think that Vogel is definitely up there in the top 5 coaches in the league for sure. You got to look at this team. It's extremely flawed. No bench. Very poor ball handling across the board, and he is competing into the 6th or maybe even 7th game of the conference finals against the best team in the East. That is a terrific coaching job. He already has coached the defense into a formidable foe for any team that they play, and offensively he's shown us a lot of interesting wrinkles. Now Vogel just stays the course. I'm sorry, Spoelstra just stays the course. He simply just runs, the sets they run with ISOs and 5-man out, doesn't really adjust that. So he's getting outcoached a little bit here, through more stretches of the game, and he's simply, getting enough of that overwhelming talent to beat them. So there's no question Vogel, I think, is doing a better job with less. Let's see here. What do I think? As we Canadians say, was the TSN turning point of the game? The scrum by Birdman and the ensuing block, or... Oh, God, you can't give me a 2-part question here. Certainly that was a big turning point. It seemed like it got everybody fired up. And again, I was surprised that Birdman didn't get thrown out because in that beginning part, what they showed in the replay was the second push after they squared off. But what started the whole thing was as they're running back, Birdman just kind of shoved him. It almost felt like out of nowhere, and I thought that would have been him thrown out. Thoughts on Austin Rivers? All right, let's do a random Austin Rivers thought. I think he's good. I think he's got a lot of ability. And like I said on Twitter a few days ago, I was watching one of those associations about the rookies. He still looks like he's 17. I swear to God, he hasn't even physically matured yet. He still needs to gain 15 pounds of man muscle. And right now, that doesn't sound right, but nonetheless, you know what I'm talking about. He just looks like he's a kid. And I've seen him. He's got terrific ball handling ability. He has shot-making ability. I think he played well down the stretch in the last 15, 20 games. So there's no question in my mind Austin Rivers can be a viable player in the NBA. Let's see. What did Miami do in the game which resulted in Indiana to fail? I think Miami had a lot of energy in there and were tipping balls out. They certainly had moments where they were getting overwhelmed on the boards as well. Once they got that 15, 16 point separation, then the rebound is sort of kind of got closer to even. But energy had a lot to do with it, and and just shot selection. Rumor has it the Cavs may offer their #1 pick for Cousins from Kings. What's best for those two teams and for Cousins long term? Well, I would have to say Boogie Cousins is one of those guys that's ripe for a change of scenery. I know how I was at the Summer League in 2010 when he was drafted, and Pete Carrill, who invented the Princeton offense and was an assistant for the Kings then, was really high on him. And we saw some terrific stuff. He's a good passer. He can handle the ball. He can score down low. He can get rebounds. So I don't know. I feel like there's a situation out there for him where he can really excel and be one of the best big men in the league. If it's in Cleveland, we'll see. Maybe, can Mike Brown get through to him? Maybe. And then in exchange for the #1 pick, it's not the worst thing. I mean, will Noel give them the kind of production that Boogie Cousins would have as well, and maybe not the headache? Yeah. So that's not a bad trade. It could end up working out well, and I think that certainly DeMarcus Cousins, needs a change of scenery. Clippers apparently reached out to Jeff Van Gundy. Thoughts on Jeff Van Gundy? Jeff Van Gundy is one of the best coaches around, without question. And he would really make them into a tough team. He would certainly make them a much better defensive team, which is what they need. I would imagine Blake Griffin would improve as well as DeAndre Jordan positionally. I love DeAndre Jordan, by the way. He's got terrific energy on defense. He tries. He wants to block shots. What's wrong with that? So if he could get through to them there, offensively, I'll have to go back and check some of the old stuff from Jeff because it's hard to remember exactly what his philosophy is there. But it has to be better than what they had with Vinny Del Negro. So, did I mention LeBron James began to set a lot of screens in the end? Absolutely, and I did that in the tweet where LeBron James, they finally sent him away and screened and then came back around for the ball. Don't forget, sports fans, on a weak side screen between two players, the most important player isn't the cutter getting the screen, it's the screener, because everyone was going to watch the cutter. And if the screener pivots the correct way with the right footwork, he can seal out the man and get wide open. And if the guy with the ball understands that, he can hit him for a lot of easy shots. And that's what they do also with the post-up. So, can I credit the Miami defense on the struggles of Indiana's backcourt in Game 5? It's half and half. Some of those turnovers were just bloody awful. They just threw them away, practically. Luckily for Indiana, in the first half, they were dead ball turnovers, so the ball went out of bounds, and they couldn't get the flying death machine going. So luckily for them, they were able to contain the damage there. But no, so it was a mix, and they definitely got worn out and were tired by the end. Don't the Spurs have to be the favorite in the NBA Finals? Well, it's kind of hard because certainly you can say the Spurs swept the Grizzlies, and so they must be playing better. They must be, they should be favored in the finals. That is certainly true to some degree, but it's hard to tell. The matchups has changed from one series to the next. So the Spurs had a challenge from the Warriors and they had to go 6 games, and then they swept the Grizzlies, and that's kind of strange. You wouldn't think that would be happening. So all bets are off when the finals start. So we already answered that question. Let's see. Were Hill and Stevenson missing open shots, or was it the Heat defense? So we talked a little bit about that. It was both. The Heat defense wore them out, but the Pacers just have really bad ball handlers. Stop saying Greg Hibbert. Did I say it again tonight? Because if I start, I have a problem. And it's possible that Roy Hibbert's family, they got it wrong. Maybe his name was supposed to be Greg Hibbert, and that's why I keep calling him that. Otherwise, I have no idea. Just deal with it. Let's roll with it. You can call me Coach Nate if you want. Do you think that Dwight will end up going to the Rockets? I got to tell you, it feels after talking to all these Laker people today who were here in studio, I got to figure that it's a real possibility. Oh, and excuse me, Mark Medina, also of the Daily News, was here. It sounds like it's at least 50-50 that he might go, and that he'll go. You got issues with him playing with Kobe. You got issues with the team itself. And compared to someone like Houston, Houston's got some juggling to do with their roster and with their contracts. But I got an interesting feeling about that. We haven't even heard the right things from Dwight saying, "I love LA and I'm committed to this place." That's the kind of thing you normally hear from a guy that wants to stay. Do I think Wade is having problems with the matchups or just his knee? Wade shouldn't have any problems with the matchups. He shouldn't have a problem really, with Stevenson too much. or certainly Young or whoever else he's going to guard. I think his knee is a problem. He just doesn't look himself. The funny thing is, he doesn't look himself, and then all of a sudden he'll just dunk the ball out of nowhere or over 2 people or whatever, and that's the problem. So it's really strange. That might be the knee. The knee gives him every once in a while a great possession, and the rest of the time he can't get any explosion. Why am I so handsome? Thank you. Did Chris Bosh get traded in the second half? You know what? We should check. Can someone make sure that Chris Bosh is still on the Heat? He definitely seemed like he disappeared. In what aspect could the Heat improve its offense? Well, we've gone over this quite a bit. The Heat run a really stagnant offense, and they go to 5-man out way too often. 5-man out in the perimeter with one guy screening, wandering around like a dog trying to find a bone, screening anybody he can. I hate that offense. And you know what? It works okay. It's not the most efficient set they run, but it works okay, which is sort of like encouraging them. The bottom line is horns. The flash of LeBron. By the way, in the fourth quarter, when we showed you that flash of LeBron to the free throw line, they flipped it and put Wade there and had LeBron on the side with Chris Bosh getting the back screen. I love that kind of stuff. Offenses are best when they're interchangeable, and that's what the triangle offense gives you. So, but what they do with horns, what they do with LeBron posting up, and again, the LeBron posted up a little bit, but it wasn't like it was when they blew him out. Gosh, who was Greg Hibbert? I'm telling you, his name really is Greg, and no one knows it. You know how cats have like 3 names, right? That must be Greg's third name, Hibbert's third name. If there was a package deal sending Jared Dudley to Indiana to come off the bench, how much would it help them? Jared Dudley is nice, and it's a great story how he's improved every year, which is rare for NBA players these days, in my mind. And he's a bit tough on defense. Would he be an upgrade to Sam Young? Yeah. Would he be an upgrade to, that would probably be an upgrade. I would take him over Sam Young any day. Who do I think that he could get moving forward since Wade might never get healthy, and should they trade Bosh? Yeah, that's a problem. Wade might have seen his better days. So it's a really interesting question what they're going to do about that after this year and if he can get healthy or not. Because if he's going to struggle again next year, they're going to have a real trouble. And, I think they're kind of stuck with the contracts they have. So I'm not so sure moving any of these guys is going to be a real viable option until their contracts expire. Is the next year Kobe's last year? Everyone seems to think that, yeah, he's going to play out his contract, which is, I think, he has 2 more years left, and that'll be it. I'm going to be surprised if he even makes it back next year playing well. Have I ever had sphincteritis? You know what? I did. In high school, we were 11-0 and playing our big rival on the road, and let's see here. We were up by 1. And it was like no time left. They inbounded the ball, and the guy shot a 3/4 court shot, just threw it up. And I kind of put my hand up to contest it. I don't know why. I got too close. His follow-through nailed me, and the ref out of nowhere called a foul on me. He got 2 free throws. Now, he missed it, which is thank God he missed it. But I never should have been anywhere near there, and I don't even think I understood that until after that point. So there you go. How would you use Hansbrough differently? It seems like Vogel doesn't use his strengths. You know what? Hansbrough is doing fine. He's mixing it up, making the other team crazy. And he got a couple shots at the rim. You know what? He's limited, so it's hard to say you can use him any differently than he is. Let him get out there. Let him mix it up. Let's see here. Yes. When's my birthday? In October. Why don't they play Austin Rivers? I don't know. But Austin Rivers. Oh, you're talking about on the Hornets. Well, he'll play more. You'll see next year. Do you think it's time for Wade to step down from being the second option and let Bosh have a go at it? Bosh is not that guy in this offense. Now, it would be really strange. They'd have to let Bosh post up, and they don't seem willing to do that. And so that's a real interesting question why they've gone away from that. But you're right. I think that would be a great viable option for them. Get Bosh in the low post, get him screening the ball a little bit more with LeBron, and let Wade spot up a little bit more. I think that's a real viable alternative here. Will Wade accept that? Maybe not, because clearly when they're running these sets, it's right when you call it or whose turn it is. It's still, they kind of gone back to the original 2010 version a little bit with their offense, and it's frustrating because they had these moments of real clarity of running a terrific team ball. So why don't they run LeBron on back screens for under rim post steals with Bosh? All right, that's a great question. I don't know. We've seen them go from one offense to the next offensive set to it's almost like in football with packages. In game 1, they're going to run this package. And in game 2, they're going to run the nickel package. And then they'll go back to it again for a whole other game. Or they'll run horns 4 times in a row and then not run it again the rest of the game. And I can't really follow how that works. So there really is no rhyme or reason in my mind how they're calling these plays. But you're right. That would be a great play for them to get LeBron great post-up position. I think that they're happy enough with LeBron just, bullying down there and getting position. So, all right, so we'll wrap it. Let's take our last 3 questions here as it's getting late, and we'll go from there. Let's see. Do I think that Paul George needs to take more shots? I think he took enough shots in this game. He's not quite ready to be that #1 guy yet. He's the #1 guy in the Pacers, but he's just now, solidifying his position. He's getting there, but he's almost there. If Miami wins the series, who would you choose to win the finals and how many games? Great question. I got to tell you, Miami versus San Antonio is a great, great series. It should be epic. It better go 7 games. And you know what? The way the Spurs execute with their pick and roll, I think I think they're really going to have a lot of success against the Heat. Now, the Heat are going to have success against them as well. So I got to go with Popovich over Spoelstra. I got to go Spurs in 7. Well, thanks for joining us, sports fan, on this great live in-studio post-game show. Well, I'm sure we'll be back for even more. I want to thank everybody out there for helping us put this thing together. We'll have lots of content coming up to you in the next several days, all the stuff, the NBA and the Lakers and Clippers and all sorts of things. So don't miss it. And don't forget, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in?